Well, one man who followed the Alaskan adventures so closely that I'll be amazed if he doesn't dazzle us all with an insight or two into what went on there and what's likely to happen in Washington tomorrow. It's the one and only Afshan Rattansi. Afshan, welcome back to the show. A word or two on our colleagues in the media first, if you will. On one level, it was funny to watch them. My instinct was to shout, "Cry more, Crimea River." But on the other hand, this must have an impact on public opinion in these Western countries when they are fed a relentless diet of war propaganda and calumny about Putin, about Russia, and against Trump for meeting him. It's a sad state of affairs. These are just stenographers for NATO, aren't they?
Absolutely. Happy birthday, George, for yesterday. And I suppose the meeting must have been held in Alaska, especially for your birthday, clearly. Yes, the NATO nation media was revealed as if we didn't know, as sick and depraved. Their reporters, their newsrooms. It was astonishing to see their absolute confusion as they had to contend with the perhaps opportunity for some kind of peace, some kind of end to the mass killing that has continued over generations now from these NATO countries. They will eventually presumably be confused when the cameras are let into Gaza for us all to see, even through their appalling camera lenses, the genocides. So they can't understand or comprehend why anyone would ever want to shake the hand of Vladimir Putin, lest the idea of a red carpet being rolled out to the leader of the largest country on earth, the leader of the largest economy in Europe by purchasing power parity. They don't comprehend it. They still believe that Russia is nothing but a gas station, and that its economy is falling apart. Hopefully, the audiences of the immiserated countries of the European Union and Britain will understand how they must switch off their television sets when it comes to watching these appalling mainstream news broadcasts that are dedicated to losing the blood and losing the lives of their viewers.
Is it money, Afshan? I mean, are they like this because there's money in it? Or are they all fully paid up cold warriors that haven't noticed that communism no longer exists in Russia?
I think it starts with their educations, isn't it? They disproportionately take from the elite classes of their respective nations. I mean, American media, outright nepotism and related directly to the CIA and for MSNBC, often calls it MSN CIA, all those remnants of the Democrat, social democrat ideas of how the world works and how world history has worked since the end of the Second World War. Everything they understand of the world is seen through a lens of not understanding the catastrophes that have happened since 1945 at the behest of these NATO countries as they try to destabilize nations in Latin America. Many people watching the Bolivia election, from which we get the batteries for every mobile phone on Earth. Evo Morales not allowed to run. They have no understanding of the destabilization of Africa, of Southeast Asia. And so why would they understand that there was a coup in 2014? They can only say that's a Russian talking point. And then trying to understand it, they keep quoting Russian media. They don't ever say, we have to quote Russian media to you because we have access to it. But of course, there's no free speech in Western Europe because they banned Russian media. Why should they be allowed to see Russian media if the people they're broadcasting to are not?
Now, let's go to Alaska then and just try and understand what it was that they discussed there and, more importantly, what they agreed there. Presumably the long talks, 3 hours of talks with Witkoff less than a week before, laid out the bones of what they were going to discuss, and the flesh was put on at the summit between the two leaders in Alaska. What do you think the bones and the flesh look like?
I think we're hoping that Steve Witkoff, the real estate agent, golf partner of Donald Trump, and the ultra-hawkish Marco Rubio, who has always supported the proxy war on Russia, hopefully they don't know what they're talking about, because in the past few hours they've been speaking on the morning shows in the United States, and some of it, I mean, we're all slightly optimistic, of course, that at last talks have begun. But then occasionally they utter statements that seem so divorced from the way the proxy war is progressing, you start to worry. So why would Witkoff have said some kind of Article 5-like security guarantee could be given to Ukraine? Well, no. If there was an Article 5-like security guarantee given to Ukraine from a Trump administration that is known to renege on negotiations, Pache, the bombing of Iran while negotiations were actually going on, that kind of security guarantee would necessarily lead to the end of the world. We mustn't forget what the stakes are here. The stakes literally are the end of the world. And then we hear Rubio saying there were no other elements of the conversations in Alaska related to other parts of world flashpoints. So Gaza wasn't mentioned, that means, and the START treaties weren't mentioned. You would think, and I think a lot of us were hoping, and hopefully Secretary of State Rubio is lying, and in fact there was some element of a possible resumption of START treaty negotiations, because we're now living in the shadow of, at any moment a mistake can be made, a flock of pigeons or geese, which could trigger a nuclear strike, because all nuclear disarmament talks are off. So one hoped that those things were also on the table. And as regards Donetsk, we presume that Donetsk, this was denied now by Rubio after previous leaks that were emerging from the talks, that in fact these 5 regions that Russia already has will be returned to Russia. Because we must remember, the reason why there's no ceasefire and the absurd idea of the dwarves, you commented in your monologue about the 7 dwarves, how neat there were 7, by the way, that are going to Washington. There can be no ceasefire because obviously Russia are winning and will win the war. Why would a ceasefire ever be agreeable to Moscow, given that would just give the chance for Zelensky, the dictator Zelensky, to rearm? So therefore, a full peace agreement is what is required, and that's the Trump administration's position.
Yeah, and they seem to have accepted that there will be no ceasefire without a peace agreement. So the demand of Zelensky and the dwarves that there needs to be an immediate ceasefire is now no longer the American position. America has accepted that this will have to be resolved with a peace agreement rather than a ceasefire prior to that. So that's some kind of advance. They must, if they didn't discuss START, they didn't discuss Gaza, they didn't discuss Iran, they must have then spent 135 minutes on Ukraine. If what is now being said by Witkoff, by Rubio, the Article 5 business, and so on, if these are true, there will be no agreement and probably no second round of talks. But if this is all just political public relations bluster, then when these things are not agreed in a second round of talks, Trump will be building up even more aggro for himself in the sofa shows on the Sunday mornings and with the Democrats and the Miss Lindsey Grahams of this world in his own party. So it's hard to know why Witkoff and Rubio are briefing these kind of things.
I mean, of course, some have it that Trump is doing this to deflect from the Epstein hearings, which will be making headlines in the United States over the next 72 hours. Of all people, former Attorney General Bill Barr, whose father gave Epstein his first job, is due to testify in congressional hearings. But, I mean, if one tries to look kindly on Trump, given what J.D. Vance, Vice President J.D. Vance has said in the past about Western Europe's lack of freedom of expression, could it be possible that this is at last a way to tear the United States away from Western Europe, which is so hell-bent on its own destruction? The leaders and the elite classes of Western Europe so hell-bent on self-destruction, so that these seven dwarves, as you call it, no offense to people who are height challenged, they are told, look, you're on your own. And Trump has hinted at this. You can do what you like. We're not going to. I mean, the idea of sanctions still reverberated in the morning shows in the past couple of hours, London time, which was quite odd, because India was very clear in saying that they would continue to import Russian energy. And actually, one thing that it seemed that was put forward and on the Rupert Murdoch's Fox channel, where the commentators, one has to say, are all, might as well be Biden commentators on Rupert Murdoch's channel, because Rupert Murdoch himself is part of that system. They, at least on Fox, raised the idea that why is it Western Europe is continuing to import Russian energy, and would secondary sanctions hit Germany and some countries in Western Europe that continue to enjoy Russian energy? And of course, Zelensky is paid by the transit fees that Russia pays to the Ukrainian government.
So you mentioned the dwarves, and again, as you say, no offense to the midgets of the world. They're on the plane now. Why is Trump letting them in, first of all? What role are they likely to play? And I suppose, most importantly, is Trump going to scatter them, or is he going to succumb to them?
It wasn't clear, was it? I mean, you watching from London must have despaired at the idea of a British Prime Minister. I mean, think of a different world in which the British Prime Minister would have held the talks between Trump and Putin in England. Who knows? At one of Prince Charles's palaces, King Charles's palaces. Britain could have had a role to play as a global, post-Brexit leading nation. It wasn't clear at the beginning why these seven, Keir Starmer, Maloney, Merz, Stubb, your favorite Finnish leader, who lots of people are saying Trump really likes because he plays golf very well. Macron, Rutte, the failed Dutch politician who's now Secretary General of NATO, and Ursula von der Leyen, no Kaja Kallas, that would have made 8, you see. Why? Why are they going? And then Rubio in the past few hours has said they're coming at Trump's invitation, which is strange because initially the whole point was a one-on-one with Zelensky. Then there are reports that there is no way these seven are going to be let in to the initial talks with Trump. They then come in later. It's going to be great fun, isn't it, watching on Monday? Because there is the possibility that, well, especially from a BRICS nation point of view and a global South point of nation, that the genocidal states of Western Europe with such a history and legacy of blood on their hands, of such genocide on their hands, are finally going to be cleaved away from the United States, and there won't be an Atlantic alliance to, that is a possibility where Trump realizes the future is anyway in Southeast Asia, and the Chinese century, China ahead of the United States when it comes to GDP by PPP. The United States is the second most powerful economic nation. That would be a sight to see on Monday, wouldn't it?
Indeed, I've been dreaming of that all of my life and trying to work for that all of my life. But let's look on the other side of that. He's making a rod for his own back. If he instructs Zelensky to end the war and does so by saying, because I'm no longer a part of it and you can't fight it without me, then he's then going to have the seven dwarves swarming around in that Oval Office. Lucky they're very small, so they'll be able to get them all in. And they'll be snarling and and squawking against Trump, and he's making a public relations rod for his own back. If, on the other hand, he succumbs, he's the mouse rather than the man, then all these gloating social democrats are going to have pulled a real fast one over Donald Trump, and the Nobel Peace Prize will be no more.
Why does he want the Nobel Peace Prize anyway? Why does he want a prize that Obama once won, the butcher of Libya? Who knows? Who understands that element? I mean, surely Trump, on the one hand, Trump realizes that he can stop all the security assistance in terms of navigation and the satellite aid help for dictator Zelensky's troops. He'd have to ask his friend Elon Musk to switch off the Starlink, which is used by Zelensky's troops. And it doesn't matter how much aid Britain gives. I don't know how rich Britain is. The poor of Britain must be very rich for Britain to afford all these giveaways for 100 years to Zelensky. They're rendered obsolete by the United States switching off the intelligence sharing, as it's called. No amount of numbers of MI6 and British special forces that are apparently being killed every other week by Russian troops will be able to survive without the intelligence gathering support from outer space. But on the other hand, we remember that these elites are powered by a huge military, economic, industrial complex in which powerful armaments industry lobbying, upon which they depend not only to commit the genocide in Gaza, they also depend on Ukraine, which has been a fantastic opportunity for these massive companies. I know that Rheinmetall, the largest weapons manufacturing publicly traded company in Germany, shares have been dropping. But how powerful are all these lobby groups? We know from K Street in Washington, D.C., the huge hoardings proudly displaying how every senator and every congressman is a paid-up servant of the arms industry. Could that be pushed to make Trump bow down not just to the dwarves, but to the industry that pays those dwarves? Ultimately, it is the powerlessness and the weakness of the working classes of Western Europe to allow themselves to be immiserated by these elites, which gives them that power, which has arguably more power than the Oval Office. Is that the question?
Now, finally, Afsan, a more difficult question, difficult to answer because we're not in Russia, we don't get allowed to watch Russian media and so on. But if Putin settles this for measurably less than the Russian war aims, a war which has cost Russia in blood and treasure and diplomatic and other disruption very dearly, if Putin were to settle this well short of the war aims of Russia, repeatedly stated, what would be the repercussion, the implication for internal Russian politics on this? We never get to hear, really, from Russian public opinion.
That's right. And it should be said, there's a BBC and Sky reporter wandering around the streets of Moscow. The Russians allow these reporters from these organizations. I suppose it's laudable, even though it sticks in our craw. But I know both of us, George, have been very critical of Vladimir Putin over the years as regards Ukraine. And I think Putin and Lavrov know it completely, that what we have been criticizing the Russian government for so many years, the gullibility over Minsk, the gullibility that has followed since 2014 and over many other geographical points of conflict and contact. So presumably, they realize now that they are only there by virtue of the popular opinion of the Russian people. There is no way Vladimir Putin would be president of Russia without the support of Russia's people, the largest country on earth. Unlike Zelensky, the Gallup poll in Ukraine shows that a majority favor a peace agreement. What Putin and Trump want and what they negotiated in Alaska. And as for the people of Ukraine, they weren't allowed to elect Zelensky when his term ran out. So Putin knows that he answers to the Russian people, and he sent many Russian sons and daughters to their deaths in the fight for the existential fight for Russia, because this is what NATO and what the Biden administration, the Obama administration wanted to do to Russia. There's no doubt that if Trump does cede anything to the seven dwarves in Washington in the next 24 hours, if there's anything less than Donetsk, and I mean, at least these NATO countries have stopped talking about Crimea, the absurdity of Crimea becoming part of some rump Ukraine. No, it's over. The nice guy Putin days are over. So what the Western media commentators call as maximalist, the Russians see as justice, and it's understood by the majority of all humankind. If the United States, if the Western European powers don't seem to be able to concede anything, so they're lost causes. But if the United States, if the Trump administration doesn't concede to Russian demands, that's why they said they're going to concede nothing. It means for a very dangerous world.
I personally believe the war will go on, Afsan. I don't think it's going to end in a peace agreement. What's your take?
It depends on what Trump can threaten the European Union and Britain with. He could threaten them with tariffs. Who knows? We know how weak these people are. I met Keir Starmer at a BBC flagship program. He refused to shake my hand. I don't know. He was too frightened. You must have met him occasionally, I presume. They're very weak people. Keir Starmer, Meloni, Merz. They're hated in their own countries. Surely they'll do what Trump wants them to do, what J.D. Vance wants them to do. The worrying thing is the people inside the tent, John Ratcliffe of the CIA and Marco Rubio. Are they actual plants from the deep state?